Recording started. I think we're ready to get going. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Erin Acosta, and I'm an Energy Corps intern with the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow. Our team is Adam Flint, who's our Director of Clean Energy Programs, Eli Conlin, who's our Sustainable Energy Fellow, and I'm also joined tonight by Alex, Erin Z, Jackie, Joe, Julia, and Lauren, who are the other Energy Corps interns. So first, I want to let you know a little bit more about our organization. So the Network for Sustainable Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization in Binghamton, and we partner with other groups to work towards social, environmental, and economic justice and equity in our area. So we, as part of our mission, we catalyze and convene new initiatives and partnerships, and we also focus on outreach and education to build a stronger and more resilient Southern Tier. So as you see on the right-hand side, we do have a variety of different programs, but tonight our presentation is going to focus on HeatSmart Southern Tier. So this is an overview of our presentation tonight. So we're going to start with what is HeatSmart Southern Tier. We're going to talk about weatherization and heat pumps, which are the HeatSmart technologies. We're also going to talk about incentives and financing opportunities for this technology and how you personally can get started. And then we're going to end with some other ways to get involved with clean energy opportunities, followed by a Q&A. But also feel free to put any other questions that come up throughout the presentation into the chat, and we can address them during that time. So first, what is HeatSmart Southern Tier? So HeatSmart Southern Tier is a NYSERDA-funded community outreach program, with NYSERDA being the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And it's connecting the public to local clean energy experts. So one thing that we do is we work to educate the public about sustainable heating and cooling systems through workshops, tabling events, and webinars like this one. So as you could see from the graphic here, towards the bottom of the map, HeatSmart Southern Tier operates in Broome, Tioga, Shenango, and Delaware counties. So why do we need HeatSmart Southern Tier? So this graphic here gives you an overview of the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions right now in New York State. So as you can see, heating and cooling buildings takes up a whopping 32% of these emissions. So our goal is to reduce this proportion by moving away from fossil fuels and towards clean energy opportunities. So some main benefits of participating in HeatSmart Southern Tier is that it could reduce your individual energy costs while improving your home comfort and safety. More broadly, there are also some community benefits. So you could reduce your greenhouse gas emissions and improve community awareness of clean energy. And you could also gain grant funds for your community through green energy communities. So we work with a lot of different municipalities in the Southern Tier to become clean energy communities. So this is another NYSERDA program that encourages municipalities to be more sustainable in exchange for rewards. So if you make a green improvement, such as improving energy efficiency or installing heat pump, that translates into points. And those community points can lead to increased funding for your community. So one thing that we can do is we can help you find out if there's a CEC program in your municipality. So the HeatSmart Southern Tier covers weatherization and heat pumps. So the goal of weatherization, which includes insulation and air sealing, is to protect your home from the elements and improve its energy efficiency. And then heat pumps are technologies that can provide clean and efficient energy inside your home. So the program focuses on ground source heat pumps, air source heat pumps, and heat pump water heaters. And we're going to have some more details about how this technology works a little bit later on. So lastly, these are our installer partners. So they're competitively selected and they're all approved by NYSERDA to install those clean energy technologies that we were just talking about. So if you're looking for a weatherization project, we can refer you to the installation man. For ground source heat pumps, we have NP Environmental and Daily Geothermal. And then lastly, for air source heat pumps, we have NP Environmental, Air Source LLC, and Rycor. So now I'm going to pass it over to Jackie to talk about HeatSmart technology.
All right, thank you, Erin. All right, so let's get started and talk about weatherization. So weatherization is basically protecting a building's inside from the elements. And that's done through proper insulation and sealing of doors and windows and things like that. So if you look at the diagram we have over here to the right, you can see lots of blue arrows sort of on the bottom of the house, like this is cold air that's leaking into the basement, coming through the doors and the windows in the winter. And then you can see all the red arrows at the top that is hot air kind of leaking into the attic in the summer. So when you have all these air leaks, you might have to run your air conditioner like more intensely in the summer, or turn up the heat in the wintertime, and that's burning more fossil fuels depending on your system, your current system. So once you seal all those doors and windows and put in the insulation or improve your insulation, it will reduce the need to use that energy to heat or cool in the first place. All right, so just some benefits to weatherization. Like we said, it's going to reduce your energy consumption and also can reduce those costs, your electric costs of running the AC constantly, or your fuel oil costs. It can also increase your home safety and comfort by reducing drafts, improving the humidity control, improving indoor air quality, and also reducing the risk of ice dams in the winter. Okay, so we're moving on to heat pump technology now. And if you all have refrigerators in your home, you already have this type of technology, which is pretty cool. Heat pumps basically use electricity to both heat and cool. So it's like your AC and um, your heating system all in one. Basically, how it works is that there's always going to be some hot air in the wintertime, or, heat in the ground. And what that does is this system kind of pulls the heat and compresses it and then pushes it into your home when you need it. And then in the summertime, it'll work in reverse. So it'll kind of pull out all the heat from your home, compress it, and move it outside to keep your home cool. Okay, and there's three main types of heat pumps that we're going to be covering tonight. The air source heat pumps, ground source heat pumps, and heat pump water heaters, like Erin mentioned before. As you can see, the air source heat pump is great for space heating and cooling, while the heat pump water heater is used for hot water heating. But the ground source systems can actually do both. So we'll get into that first. Okay, so here are two diagrams of geothermal systems. These are both closed loop systems, which means that there's fluid running throughout the pipes, but no new fluid comes in or leaves or anything like that. But yeah, on the left is our horizontal, which just means it's across, and vertical means straight down into the ground. For geothermal, it's also, or ground source, it's also known as geothermal. There's a pretty stable temperature, about 6 feet underground, year round. So that's why they dig to that depth or deeper. And basically it'll, in the wintertime, pull that heat from the ground and pump it into your home. And in the summertime, it'll take the heat from inside your home and pump it out, like we talked about. So the benefits of having a ground source heat pump or a geothermal system is that it's a really efficient heating and cooling system in one, and it can also include the heating domestic water. It also has a long system lifetime, and you could completely eliminate fossil fuels from your home. So no more worrying about oil or gas deliveries in the middle of winter or running out of fuel. Okay, that brings us to our air source heat pumps. So these are ductless heat pumps with outdoor and indoor units. This is a lot less invasive. There's no digging or anything like that. But as you can see, there's these outdoor units that do kind of the compression, and then these indoor units that you can put in different rooms around your home. And there's a bunch of different types. Yeah, so the benefits of air source heat pumps is that you don't need to do a full heating replacement. So the air pumps can be used to kind of supplement the heating system you already have or the AC. There's great zone control, meaning that you can have different temperatures in the different rooms. It's air conditioning without the ductwork, and they also run very quietly. And that brings us to our heat pump water heater. So this is a system that uses indoor air to heat hot water, and there is a backup for meeting high demand, so there's no worry about running out of hot water. It's got a greater efficiency than typical electric water heaters, and it also serves as a dehumidifier, which is great for basements. All right, and now I'm going to pass it off to Erin Z.
Hi guys. So of course, everyone is interested in these energy efficiency technologies and having lower heating and cooling costs, but the big question is finances. Finances are a large factor in people's interest or ability to pursue these sorts of improvements. So we're going to give an overview about the rebates, the tax incentives, and the different ways to finance the technologies that we've covered, because of course the upfront costs can be not accessible for everyone. And so one benefit of going through the HeatSmart program is the ability to talk with an installer partner. We have some of them on the call today, and they can work with you and your unique financial situation. And they can help you take advantage of the full state and federal incentives that exist. So the first set of incentives that we'll look at is the NYSEG and New York State rebates. These are rebates you can put towards the projects to reduce the upfront cost of the project, as long as the improvement qualifies with the criteria. And all of Nest's competitively selected partners will have the correct certifications to make sure your project has the right heating capacity, so you don't have to worry about the specifications of your project. So for these particular rebates, to qualify for New York State low income rebates, your household income has to be below 80% of the area median income for your county. But even if you're over 80% of the area median income, you may still qualify for other New York State moderate income rebates. And I'll also mention that the NYSEG and the state rebates can be combined. So if you qualify for more than one, or if you're doing multiple projects, then you can combine certain rebates. And then the federal rebates will also be available, but hopefully by the second part of the year in 2024 at the earliest. So we'll still be waiting on those, but the New York State rebates and the NYSEG rebates are available. Next, we have the tax credits that you can get after making these improvements. The IRA, or the Inflation Reduction Act, offers a 30% tax credit for each project. This means that 30% of the project costs for installation of insulation, an air source heat pump, a ground source heat pump, or a heat pump water heater, 30% of those project costs can be reimbursed to you as a tax credit, and these will count towards your federal taxes. There's also New York State tax credits that you can get on top of your federal taxes. New York State currently has a 25% tax credit up to $5,000 for a ground source heat pump. And again, you can combine those. There's also different financing options outside of rebates and tax credits. Of course, you can seek out a loan. NYSERDA offers two different loan options. The first one is the Smart Energy Loan. The second one is the On-Bill Recovery Loan. They're essentially the same, similar terms. The only difference is that the On-Bill Recovery Loan is paid on your utility bill over time. So it's a different term and different manner of paying. There's also financing that you can find through specific heat pump manufacturers like Synchrony or Enerbank. Those are unsecured loans. They can have dealer fees, but they can have longer terms of up to 20 years. And lastly, you can go the traditional route and secure a loan through your local bank if those interest rates are more competitive than the other ones. And lastly, we want to talk about NYSERDA's Empower program, which applies to any household with an income below 80% of the state median income. Through Empower, you can receive a no-cost home energy assessment to identify where energy and thus money is being lost. And Any improvements that you might need are identified during this assessment, and they can be installed by our contractors participating in the Empower program. Different discounts are available for these projects that are based on your income and based on your household size. This program is open to the income eligible owners and also renters of 1 to 4 family households in one building. So how do you get started with this whole process? We've covered a lot of material, and it might be a little overwhelming, but how do we get started? Do you want to go to the next slide? Yeah. If you're interested in anything that we discussed tonight, there's some general steps that you would take to participate in the HeatSmart program. You always start with a free home assessment. This is just to test the energy efficiency of your home and to see where there could be improvements and what sort of technology would be best fit for your home. You would then receive a quote for the improvements, and then you would then be able to apply for incentives and sign a contract for the system that you want to install. Before that point, there's no commitment. So if you know you would like to start this process, or you're not really sure, but you might be interested, we would be happy to sign anyone up tonight. And signing up does not commit you to anything. It just helps us help you, so we can start that process together. Yeah, and then we do have some other clean energy opportunities besides just weatherization and heat pumps. The first one is on the next slide. Electrical upgrades. So there's also some financial incentives for upgrading your electrical panel, also called breaker box, and electrical wiring. These would be important to help handle changes in your home's electricity load, or just to update the older electrical work in your home. There are a couple different rebates for low, moderate, and high income households for both electrical panel upgrades and for electric wiring. And there's also a tax credit available for electric panel upgrades. And as much as we would love if public transport were robust enough to support us all, the reality is that a lot of us need personal vehicles. So if you're considering purchasing a new or used electric vehicle, there are federal tax credits available to reimburse you these costs. These have certain criteria to qualify, such as your income and the price of the vehicle. But this can be very helpful if you are unsure or trying to purchase an electric vehicle. Last but not least, we would like to mention our partnership with a nonprofit, Citizens Energy, to develop a local community solar project right in Dickinson. Community solar allows you to subscribe to solar without installing anything, which is pretty nice. Instead of what you might normally envision for solar, which is just like putting panels directly on your roof, your energy with community solar is sourced from an off-site solar farm. So this is great for people with barriers to installing traditional solar, such as the location of your house, like the sun, the angle of the sun during the day, or whether you're a renter or if your income is restrictive. So this is a great opportunity as well. And the way that the solar project works is that you would support the solar developer with your NYSEG payment. So you have to pay your own NYSEG bill. But part of your payment will go towards the solar developer. And in return, you would receive a 20% annual discount on your electric bill. So signing up for this is non-binding. It'll just put you in the queue for people to be a part of the project. But we would be very interested to have you all sign up. And also we have the FAQ page on our website that can help you if you have any questions. And speaking of which, if you have any questions, please speak now.
All right, everybody, I'm going to lead up the Q&A section here. I just want to call your attention to a note I put in the chat regarding the federal tax credits and incentives. I'm sure many of you have heard in various places about the IRA and other incentives. The tax credits are currently active. The incentives are not. And as I've mentioned in the chat, we anticipate that those incentives will be active by the end of the summer, possibly a little bit earlier. There may be a subset of those incentives that are active in the spring, but that remains to be seen. And we will certainly be spreading the word once we know they're out there. So again, if you have questions, you can either raise your hand and unmute yourselves, or you can type into the chat and we can respond that way. Since right now we are not getting a lot of activity, I'm going to ask some of the frequently asked questions that folks often like the answers to from our two installer partners who are here, starting with Jess and then going over to Kevin. Could you just talk a little bit briefly about what the process is like, to start work with your company on insulation and air sealing and on heat pumps? Jess?
The process itself is really easy. After I do the initial phone call, is where I will pre-qualify you for any programs that are available, get the contact information if you are eligible for a program, or take down the necessary information for us to be able to do the energy audit. If it's somebody going through the program, it starts with the energy audit. From there, everything gets submitted to NYSERDA, and then we schedule the work based on what they approve. For people that are market rate, if an audit is needed, we'll come out, we'll do the audit. If it's not really needed, if you have a specific area that you just want insulated, we can come out and do an estimate. From there, it's just a matter of signing a contract and scheduling the work. And right now, for people that do not qualify for the NYSERDA programs, if you are beyond the financial guidelines that they have listed, we are able to offer an instant rebate when it comes to attic insulation and air sealing. And that is something, if they're interested, we can discuss that when the contract is signed. But we are able to offer that right now for anybody looking for attic and air sealing.
And you all also guide people through the income eligible NYSERDA programs, Power and Power Plus as well. I did just see a note reminding me from one of my colleagues that geo-eligibility is going to be discontinued. If not, I think it might already be discontinued. Geo-eligibility was a system that NYSERDA set up not that long ago, actually, whereby if the locality where you live had a certain percentage of people below a certain income, they wouldn't bother to individually qualify people. They would just sort of assume that everybody's qualified. Because the federal IRA incentives do not allow that, the federal government don't allow that. NYSERDA has decided to end that. We are not fond of that decision because they could still have done that with the state's money, or rather with ratepayer money. I'm seeing some questions in the chat. And so, Mark, this program is statewide. We at one time did work in Oneonta. Technically speaking, we're not covering Otsego County, but since some of our installers do work there, we'd be happy to help you out. As far as the eligibility, Jess already answered that question. It's statewide. There's a direct question to me, and if you would, when you put the questions in, try to respond to everybody, but I will read this question so that everybody sees it. This is from Stacy. Can you explain how the ground source heat pump works? Does it ever get too cold here in Delaware County for them to work? Does it ever happen that one can't be installed because the ground is too rocky? The short answer to the first two questions is Well, actually, I'll answer the second one because I want to let Kevin answer the others. But no, it doesn't ever get too cold. Just for reference, heat pumps are most widely used in some of the coldest places on Earth, namely in Alaska, Canada, and Scandinavia. But Kevin, would you care to explain how ground source or geothermal heat pumps work, and also what sort of geological limits are there in terms of well drilling or trenching?
Yeah, of course. So, all right. So part one was it limitations of geothermal or cold weather performance, or?
Well, the first
and
part was how does it actually work?
Oh, how does it work? Okay, yeah,
How does it
sorry.
work? And then the second question was, is it ever getting too cold for them to work? And I already kind of said no. And then the third part of the question was about any sort of geologic limitations she particularly cites if the ground is too rocky.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, so I'll dive right into how they work. So most geothermal or ground source heat pumps that are going to be installed today are going to use a high density polyethylene water pipe in the ground. And there's going to be a water antifreeze mixture that gets pumped and circulated through those pipes. And that's going to act as a large heat exchanger to extract all the thermal energy that gets stored in the ground. And of course, that a lot of people are familiar that the ground temperature, several feet down, stays pretty consistently in the 50s all winter, which is of course too cold to heat your house. So that's where the heat pump comes in, and it's similar technology from there to the air source heat pumps, in that we use a refrigeration circuit and compression and expansion processes to amplify that energy into a higher temperature that can be used in the house. Geothermal can come in a variety of distribution options from there. The simplest is a ducted system if you already have a furnace or you're looking to have a ducted forced air system installed. They can also be water to water, which would be the equivalent of a boiler that could run anything from radiant floors to hot water baseboard, or really the sky's the limit. There's a lot of distribution options for water-based systems. However, it is important to have that properly designed, as the water temperatures are less than a boiler still. And so to get the right number of BTUs, it's important to have a good design. There's also ductless options with geothermal now. That would be similar to the mini splits that you get with an air source heat pump. That can come in the form of geothermal now, which we also offer. So a lot of different ways it can be incorporated and retrofit into a home. And that's essentially the overview of how it works. It is just another heat pump refrigeration system, but it's a very forgiving one, especially in cold temperatures, because it has that steady energy source from 6 to 7 feet below ground minimum. To get into the geology part of the question, Delaware County, depending on where you are, we're getting down into the Catskills, which historically has been proven to have a little bit less of a thermal conductivity for a vertically bored system. The ground loops can come in a variety of different configurations. Sometimes it's a trench system that requires multiple trenches dug over 100 feet long and 6 to 7 feet deep underground. Unless we hit bedrock that's impossible to dig through with even a large excavator, those are typically pretty reliable in Delaware County. Typically we don't run into that issue down there. If you have that horizontal space, a large yard or a field, that's typically option A. Pond loops are also an option if you happen to have a sizable pond with sufficient depth. That can be a pretty good bang for your buck, as water is a very good conductor and we can extract a lot of BTUs there. And then if you have limited space, or if you happen to have bedrock very close to surface that can't be excavated, then we can drill. We can drill through rock, soil, whatever. Actually, rock is typically better, but again, Delaware County can sometimes have lower conductivity rates, and we just compensate for that by drilling deeper, getting more pipe in the ground. So yeah, it takes a good design, but ultimately the end result is a long-lasting, very efficient, very reliable system.
Thanks very much, Kevin. So Mark's asked to follow up if it's possible to do a geothermal system if the existing distribution system is baseboard water. And as Kevin knows, the answer is yes, and that's the system that I have. What is going to be the case, or is the case in my house, is that some of the heating gets done through the existing baseboard, but as Kevin mentioned, the water doesn't get heated as hot as it did when I had a boiler. So that's not going to generate enough BTUs. So the other piece in my case is having several units very similar to the kind that you see connected to air source heat pump systems. And that's not only to supplement heating, that's also to provide air conditioning, because obviously you're not going to get any air conditioning out of your baseboard water. It is technically possible to replace the hydronic baseboards with more modern baseboards that have more surface area. That tends to be on the pricey side, and also you need to have the wall space for that. But yeah, it absolutely does not rule out your house, Mark. I don't know if either Leah Daly, who's just joined us from Daily Geothermal, or Kevin, if you want to add anything to what I just said.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, and your house is a good example. You probably know better than most what that situation entails. And yeah, that's exactly it. You know, the simplest way to do it would be basically a 1-for-1 swap, because the existing baseboard alone wouldn't do it. So if you were to upgrade that to you know, a high output baseboard that can compensate for the lower water temperatures, then you're off and running for basically the exact same thing. But it is an added cost, and you're going to be looking at an investment into upgrading your distribution either way. So, you know, as Adam did, you might as well, rather than buying baseboard all over again, go for a system that can not only augment the heat, but also offer air conditioning. And it's a little bit easier to justify that added expense when you get the added benefit of air conditioning. So that's exactly it. You know, we offer both options, and we consider both. There's a few other ways too. You can kind of augment that heat and look at the costs and pricing. Hydronic toe kicks can offer a lot of BTUs for not a lot of price, but again, doesn't offer AC. And depending on the layout of everything, may not distribute the heat evenly enough. So a lot of different distribution options, and it's really just finding what works right for the customer and their house, and their budget. So
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, you could put radiant floors in all the bathrooms. It's a question of costs as well as design, as Kevin has said. No question that it's very sweet to be able to build from the ground up, but obviously that's not those of us who are here for the most part. But if I'm wrong about that, and anybody is looking to build a new home, suffice it to say that life gets so much easier for everything when you can build it with heat pumps as a part of the HVAC design from the ground up. Any other questions? Well, since Leah, you just joined us a little bit late, I'm wondering if you would like to say a few words about Daily, or if there are any other sorts of questions that you tend to get a lot from customers that you'd like to share.
Hi, everyone. We are based in Penn and we do both geothermal, hydronic, and forced air. And we do, I would say, probably 60% new construction and 40% retro. We also do the air source heat pumps, but just not down in the Binghamton area. At this point, we're seeing an influx of people wanting to see how they can convert their houses to geothermal. It is the most efficient. I will not disagree that the air source is starting to get right on their tail, but geothermal is the most efficient at this point. So we are seeing an upclip in people contacting us about geothermal, and we love that. And we would love to answer any more questions that you might have. We go as far over as just onto the kind of the west side of Binghamton, kind of Vestal area and such. So if you are in that area, by all means, give us a call or an email, and we'd love to talk to you.
Or Tioga County. You do Tioga too, right?
Yes, we do Tioga also. Yep.
Great. And actually, this just reminded me of, I think, a very important point for folks considering air source heat pumps or mini splits. It is absolutely critical that when you get these installed, that the installer really knows their business and installs, to begin with, cold climate heat pumps. If any of you have spent any time down in the South, you'll know that there's lots of air source heat pumps or mini splits down there. Those are not designed for this climate. You need to have a cold climate heat pump. And alas, it still does come to pass from time to time that we hear from people who have had those non-cold climate heat pumps installed, and you just don't want to do that. So it is really important that the person or the company that installs really is very experienced and understands design. And so, mistakes don't get made. We always advise people to get at least one quote. Obviously, you don't have to go with our partners, but we stand by them for a reason. They have a lot of experience. They're well rated with the manufacturers of the equipment that they install and service. So that's part of the reason why we're here. I'm seeing something in the chat, and I believe, yes. So just to call your attention, please, to this. In the chat is a link that Alex put into our evaluation sheet. We want to hear how we did. So if you wouldn't mind, literally will take you like 3 minutes at most. We'd very much appreciate it if you would fill that out. I'm going to take a minute to tell you about some other things that we have going on, in part to give you time to do that, but also to inform you. We are going to be collaborating with 0 Hour from Binghamton University, for those of you in the Binghamton area, for this year's Earth Fest. It's going to be a really fun time in Beethoven Park on the west side of Binghamton. Information about this is on our website. We also have next month, we have 2 sessions on workforce development and careers. And Mark, I see your question, so I'll circle back there. We have a webinar coming up, and my interns can help me out by putting the dates for these in the chat, please. We have a webinar coming up in the not too distant future that is going to feature our current interns and some of our intern alums from the Energy Corps program. So we've had more than 120 Energy Corps interns come through our program, the vast majority Binghamton University students, and many of them have gone on to careers in the energy field, really all over the place. We have some that, like our partners, are working in the installation field. We have people who are on the finance side, on the engineering side, who are doing planning, just really a lot of different careers. That'll be a webinar. And then a little bit later in the month, on the 14th at 7, for those of you who are connected with Binghamton University in some way, or are living in the area and are just curious, we're going to be doing a career fair with a little bit of information about clean energy careers prior to that. And actually also on our website, you will find a lot of information about a major event that we led up in September. It was a Greater Binghamton Regional Career Fair and Summit. Really well attended, went off very nicely. I'm seeing here, Mark, you were asking about air source heat pumps in Oneonta. NP Environmental does cover Oneonta. In terms of, I'm not sure if Air Source goes as far as Oneonta, but I know that NP does. So I would start with them, with Kevin's company. All right, last call for any questions before we finish up for the evening. And here's career fair information and registration. I would say that first virtual webinar is one that's probably for a broader audience. It is, I think, catering a little bit more to people just starting out a career in clean energy, but not necessarily students or young people, because we certainly have people who are looking at second careers, and some of the ways to search for those careers and so forth aren't that different than if you were coming out of an undergraduate program. So with that, I'm going to finish up. And I thank our partners, Leah and Kevin and Jess, for joining us, and also some of our colleagues from Cooperative Extension, Devin and Eileen, as well as all of you from the audience, and of course, my wonderful team. So everybody have a great evening and a great weekend. Take care.